Hi everyone, today I'm going to share my thoughts on the book It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. In this book we follow Lily, who moved to Boston after graduating from college. When we meet her at the beginning of this book, she just got back from a funeral of her father and she's lying on a roof of a building she's not living in and looking at the sky when she meets a guy who is this gorgeous neurosurgeon, and he appears to be this super sensitive, brilliant guy that is clearly completely fallen for Lily. Let's leave it at that. And as a warning for anybody that has not yet read the book and might be interested in it, this book features quite a few graphically described scenes of domestic violence as well as an almost rape. So if you're sensitive to that kind of plot and writing, please don't read this book because it is featured quite heavily. And lastly, before I start, I just want to say that I will be talking about an understanding that one of the characters comes to throughout this book. For me, her coming to that understanding is what made this book as good as it was, and if I would have known that this book features that kind of conclusion, I would have picked it up way sooner. So for me, it is not a spoiler, it's a selling point, but if it is a spoiler for you, please just don't watch this video. Alright, now let's start with what I thought about this book. I was not expecting to enjoy this book at all, and if you watched my library book haul, you know that, because I said I expect to read this and be completely hating this book, but I wanted to read it simply because I keep hearing people talk about it, so I wanted to know what they're talking about when they talk about this book. So I was basically in a shock state after finishing it because I really thought that Hoover did such a fantastic job with this book, and I really didn't understand for a while after finishing this book how she managed to write such a good book, which might be completely unfair. But the other books I read by her, 3 if you're wondering, were in my option just horrible portrays of relationships. I hated how those books ended, but this one was so completely different, and I mean completely different from any of the other 3 books I read by her. This one was so real and honest, and it was just generally good. Hoover did such a wonderful job portraying a version of abusive relationships, and she let her characters make the right choices for themselves in that situation they're in, and that was so wonderful to see. I know a lot of people out there that read contemporary romance books don't want there to be this message in those books, and I do understand that. I don't think that there is a need for every book to have this great big message or something that teaches people how to behave right, but at the same time I also think that there is this middle ground where if you have the opportunity to at least portray a portion of what you would want yourself to do in that kind of situation, you should use that opportunity and showcase the right way to end that kind of situation. That if you're writing about abusive relationship, write about an abusive relationship that either evolves into something better, or write about it in this way where the characters start to learn that that is not okay, that an abusive relationship is not something they should be in. But don't just let the abuse continue and end the book in a way where the abused character is the one that basically learns that, hey, they don't deserve any better. They are in the perfect situation for themselves without needing any change in them. That is just not how I think somebody should write about abusive relationships. And that is not about a message or sending a message or teaching something. It's just, if you have the opportunity, as Colleen Hoover does, to reach so many people, her books are translated in so many different languages, she has such a wide reach. Use that opportunity and show people in horrendous relationship, in horrible homes growing up, that maybe they can also manage to take that step out of their horrible situation and make something better out of their lives. Because sometimes it just takes that simple thing as reading the right book at the right time to get the courage to do what you know you have to do. This book completely blew me away with how good of a job Hoover did with portraying one version of an abusive relationship and the way out of it. And I also completely loved how hard a time Lily had deciding what she has to do, even though she knows what she had to do. It's so hard for her to actually take the step she knows she has to do. I mean, sure, every one of us everyone, and don't lie, says that if you're in an abusive relationship in any kind of way, if you're mistreated, you would just not stand up for it. You would go, you would leave, you would get out of there as fast as you can. But you know what? Most abuse is not something that you can just walk away from the moment it starts, because it creeps up slowly. It's just something that happens over time for most people. If you think about it, and I really do mean think about it, abuse is something you grow used to. And even though you know it's wrong and that you deserve better and you want it to stop, it's also not something that most people manage to just get up and walk away from the second it starts. And so it's a hard decision. It's a hard thing to do, to actually get up and pack up and move on and decide to go. So I loved how Hoover managed to do that with and in Lily. In my option, this was one of the best and most realistic portrays of an abused character and his struggles that I have seen in a really long time in a book. So that was so wonderful to see, especially from a writer like Colleen Hoover. Was this book perfect? No, it really was not. And I did not understand a good amount of the moments in the book. I didn't understand why Atlas was included in this book at all, and the entire story could have worked wonderfully without him in my option. And while I loved the Dory part of the end of the book and the just keep swimming moments in this book, and I loved that Lily loved Ellen DeGeneres so much and found her so inspiring and helpful in her situation, I hated the letters in the book. I didn't feel that they were necessary at all. It was enough to know that Lily's father was abusive towards Lily's mother, and I didn't need those letters to see that. Maybe some people love those moments, so I'm not saying that they were unnecessary. I just say that they were unnecessary to me. And was this book a bit too easy in many situations? Yes, absolutely, because how wonderful Lily Shops works out and how she managed to deal with everything and how accepting everybody around her is with everything that she tells them, that is perfect, that is wonderful, and I hope that it would actually happen like that in real life. But realistically and honestly, we all know that not everybody is going to react in the way that the characters in this book react to what they are told. But it's fine, because that doesn't matter, because the overall story, the overall plot, and yes, the message of this book is so good, and how the characters behave is so wonderful, that I can overlook those moments that are completely unrealistic and obviously fiction. Those moments are so small compared to the bigger moments and the wonderful moments and the good moments in this book that you can overlook those completely. So thank you, Colleen Hoover, for actually finally writing a book that shows a relationship that is not easy, that is hard and heartbreaking, but so good in how this book shows exactly what everybody needs to do that somehow got pushed into this type of situation and relationship. Clearly, I highly recommend this book. And if you're interested in reading this or are hesitant because you don't know or know you don't like how Hoover writes her books, just give this one a try. Hoover really turned her plot and characters around in this one, and it really deserves all the hype this book gets. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this book, what you thought about it, if you have even read this book. If you love Colleen Hoover and all of her books and all of her plots and all her characters and relationships in previous books, if you think that books need messages, or if you think that it really doesn't matter, it's highly entertaining and that is all that matters, no matter how abusive a relationship is. There doesn't need to be a good conclusion, the right conclusion at the end of the book. Let's just chat in the comments and discuss this book and everything else you guys want to talk about. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, I would love it if you give it a thumbs up to let me know, and maybe subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you in my next video, and until then, in the comments down below. Bye! So if you were interested in that, keep on watching. Why am I talking as if I'm making a break in here? I have no idea what I'm doing today. Let's try that again.